Welcome back to Cheche on Citizen TV. We're discussing Kenya's current financial troubles, and we've been doing that through the opinions of our guests today, the former Central Bank Governor, Cheche, and the Senator from Mandera, Bill Okero, who's also the Senate's Budget and Finance Committee Chair. This is what some of our viewers are saying, just to anchor this bit as we go forward. The President should call for elections that will give him a chance to start afresh. That's what democracies do. To tame corruption and those proven to have stolen, all their property should, and plus their beneficiaries should be confiscated, and they should be left with nothing. Let the government support exports. KEFIS is not supporting exports by training farmers in order to increase exports and thus foreign exchange. So, you know, this is what some of our viewers are coming up with. What's realistic? What should we be thinking about in terms of managing and getting out of this financial turbulence?
I think for me now, because of the crisis, the President should take charge in terms of really coming with austerity measures. Secondly, saying no more borrowing, at least not borrowing from overseas.
So impose our own austerity measures before the IMF has a chance to.
The worst thing is for IMF to impose it on us. It should be homegrown to say, we can't afford to be flying all over the place. Let us cut expenses. Let us look at things like the provincial administration and the county governments. Which can we merge? Which services can we share? Let us look at the ministries which have been devolved, like health and agriculture. Why do we still have big budgets there? We've got to be very honest with ourselves and cut expenses.
One of the suggestions from our viewers was the number of counties we have, 47. You're in the Commission for Revenue Allocation. Do you believe that we should have a smaller number of counties?
I think for the moment I have no problem with the number of counties. The problem I have with the counties, and again that's where the President can call a summit and say, let us freeze recruitment of employees, because that's one of the new challenges. Recruitment of additional people in the counties. But as we've already said, we should not blame counties as the source of the problem. It's a small amount of money. Our problem is really the big cake, the national government. And it's good to acknowledge. And when people give suggestions, it should not be then be, oh, he's criticizing us, or what is he up to? We are on the boat. We are on this same boat. If it sinks, we go with it. So we are as equal shareholders as those actually in the treasury. Every Kenyan is entitled to say, hey, this boat is tilting. There is a danger of capsizing. Wewe, nyamaza, we know what we are doing. We must know what the cockpit is doing. But at the moment, the turbulence is serious, and something must be done. It will require more than the Cabinet Secretary. It requires the President himself to take charge. Okay.
Mr. Kerr, what do you think? Because the message from the flight desk is really that we're fine. We're not going through any turbulence. You don't need to necessarily tighten your seatbelts. Many of our viewers are talking about corruption.
Well, I think I want to fully support the suggestions that the Cheche has said. Of course, the President's, I think, statement that all is fine, I think is I have no doubt, it's the usual statements to calm the markets, and it's the usual. They say a dealer is a leader is a dealer in hopes. So, but I think we need to address the fundamental issues, and these are on the policies. We must address and change those economic policies that make us to go deeper and deeper into debt. You'll be comfortable living and growing at a pace where you can afford and where everyone can be happy without necessarily, because the debt has not only the risk of cash crunch for government, but the impact is it will flow into your cups and your tea and your clothes and everything, because then ultimately the cost of living goes up. And that's what we're seeing, because when the interest rates go to 22, 25, the cost of living definitely goes up for everybody. And so life becomes more expensive. And I think so, one suggestion is, let's cut down on those debts, stop the debts, I think.
Stop digging, you said
rationalize
earlier.
the public expenditure. I think this is an area which we have talked about for many years. And I personally believe that up to even 1/3 of this 2.2 trillion can actually be produced if the government is serious and they take pen and pencil and sit down to go through what they don't need. You know, not only in the areas of devolution, but even in their own ministries and in their own state agencies and so forth. So rationalizing public expenditure and
do you think it should be cut? Like what, vehicles? We have had people drive a Volkswagen when who was president, minister of finance. Of course, he doesn't have a Volkswagen. There is no minister who goes in a Volkswagen. What should be cut?
I think our government is one of those that where there is conspicuous. You cannot compare the degree of conspicuous consumption in government to any other government in the region. You can't. You go to any office and you find not just the traveling, but even in the way we do things. You will see a ministry doing feasibility studies and consultancies by the dozens, and it's not, you know, you don't understand where all those, and they're spending hundreds of millions of shillings on that. If you go through really the government printed estimates, you'll find that the amount of fat that is there that can be reduced, and I think it can, and we need to
on corruption. This from Madeka Nairobi. Could you please take the corruption debate to level of recovery of the huge sums of stolen money?
I think in my own assessment, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission seems to be steering out of its slumber, you know, and in the last few months my take is they seem to be moving, at least in, you know, getting people on, you know, if you compare that to a few years ago, there is an attempt to try and the number of cases that are being sent to the DP, but I think there's need to empower that institution. They give them more resources, both the Auditor General, all the institutions which deal with oversight. By the way, they're the least financed anytime, and you would think it is done on purpose. We've been struggling the last 2-3 years.
That's what I'm telling you.
Why the Auditor General, despite 47 new governments coming on board, his budget increases by 100 million. You go to the Anti-Corruption Ethics and it gets 2.5 billion. These are the institutions you expect them to do all that oversight and check on the corruption. You go to the DPP's office, he's always been complaining. So I think there is need to really put
the AG
where it makes where it matters most.
What about just in terms of procurement, very quickly, because we've been seeing all sorts of pricings that don't make sense, whether at the county level or whether at the national level. We've got some of them in the papers today. Take, for instance, how do you buy a 4 gig flash drive and Kaspersky antivirus for 90,000 shillings, and then you go ahead and increase taxes and salaries remain the same?
It's true. Procurement has always been our Achilles heels, and I think I want to support personally the attempts the government has been making, particularly on the procurement area, and the latest being the e-procurement thing that they have been pushing, which I think really will seal some of the loopholes. But again, the implementation has become a challenge. You know, the way, you know how people in offices are in government. If they don't want something, they will sabotage it, they will frustrate it. And in fact, the counties have said, we're not even going to do it. And the ministries and other agencies are still dragging their feet. But I think that is one area that the president has threatened to send people home. He hasn't. He needs to send people home who are not on that thing. That's one of the things he needs to, you know, tighten on. Because without addressing the procurement issues, I'm telling you, that's where we'll lose all the money.
Okay, so we're winding up now, and very quickly, your thoughts on this as we end the show. We've talked about the economic troubles we find ourselves in. We've identified the problem, defined it, the parameters of it, what caused it. We've also offered some solutions. But Mr. Carroll, you said that this government, which you are part of, does not listen. Okay, so as we leave, as you go back to the Senate, what can we do to ensure that the views of people like yourselves, the public, Mr. Cheche, are indeed taken on board by this government, so that we don't find ourselves in austerity, whether imposed by ourselves or by the IMF?
I think it's to keep up the pressure. That's what I believe. That every sector, the private sector themselves, they live in glass houses. They must come out and tell the government, look, this policy you're pursuing is not good for the economy, because ultimately they're the ones who lose when the borrowing rates go through the roof. All other sectors, all other stakeholders, I think we need to come out very strongly and continue the pressure. That's the way these governments operate under pressure. That's what happens all over the world. So let us continue with the pressure. That's my view.
Well, you know, this pressure, if it's coming from individuals here and there, you know, I don't think it's being listened to or is effective, as Kero very well knows now, because he says he speaks. And Kero was the shadow finance minister, so he should know, he should be listened to, at least. If he's not being listened to, how will other people who had no portfolio, and he's also in charge of the budget in the Senate? I think we need caucuses that are, you know, professional in nature, to make special petitions to the government to do certain things. And I think the way things are running, actually, if you ask me, well, Henry Rotich would do this country a great honor by just resigning. Or even not, if not resign, the president should do something cosmetic. Move him aside and get somebody else there and constitute a team to, you know, to look at the economic situation we are in, which could be composed of veterans and elders like Cheche, to look at things and where we are, because there is a continuing cover-up exercise. And I fear that we're not going to come out of this crisis soon because of what is happening. Digging here, filling here, looking here, borrowing here to fill this and get going. We're only postponing this crisis and it might get worse. So I think that that's a drastic measure that needs to be taken, or a subcommittee, as Mr. Cheche said, of cabinet to deal with the matter conclusively.
Okay.
On the matter of corruption, I think the executive is protecting corruption. It must be said. And there has to be a demonstration of willingness to tackle it properly, especially when things are exposed and you see just cases, people cover up, bring new documents and so forth. The commission needs to be reconstituted quickly. New commissioners need to be appointed and people of repute. And then that investigative arm of the Anti-Corruption Commission needs to act. And the DPP, for heaven's sake, that office. No.
Mutegi, what do you reckon?
This government, I've said before, is like one of Nigeria in 1980 when Shehu Shagari was the president. In the state of Nigeria, governors were trying to do things through miracles. They will build a road that way. When you go there, you find there's no road. They will build a headquarters somewhere, and you find there's, of course, overthrown. This government is headed that way, unless, like he says, something drastic is done. Because people are right. It's like that French woman who had people are out on the street there. Why are they? Yeah. Oh, there is no
Internet. Give them cake.
Why don't they give them cake? It looks like somebody said, does the president live here? Does he live in Kenya? So unless something is done, as he says, we are in trouble.
Mr. Cheche, you get the final word. You're an elder. You've handled financial crisis before, and we've talked about the various things that the government can do, and you have shared with us, you know, your experience. What can we do to ensure that we don't go the way of Greece?
I think Honorable Kero has said, so everybody has said it. It's for the government to listen, and the government to really appreciate that when we talk, we are very sincere. I would advise the president, if I was advising him, to strengthen the oversight institutions. If I were him, I would call the Auditor General and ask him, go and look at this Eurobond. There's a problem. And Auditor General, I have also told there are problems in the counties. What do you need to have a better oversight? So that I would do if I was president. Second, I would form that cabinet subcommittee, and if they need advisors, where do we cut? With timelines. And I would announce the whole country that yes, there's a problem. I have formed a cabinet subcommittee. I have asked them to get advice from other people. After all, this is our country. And frankly, there is this problem of mixing now economics and politics. Everything is hijacked. Government has borrowed. Even before they explain, somebody has said they have stolen. I myself would want to put it this way, that most of government's intentions are sincere, but then they are hijacked by brokers. So I have not had time to talk to the president. I would advise him really to take charge himself.
What do you think of David's suggestion? What do you make of David's suggestion that the Treasury Cabinet Secretary should resign or be resigned?
I think the problem is larger than that. The Cabinet Secretary is highly qualified. He does not lack qualifications, but it seems the political will to address the issue is bigger than Cabinet Secretary. So we need a bigger picture. But look, I would ask Honorable Kero, even they them to move faster and get Auditor General. After all, this office is supposed to audit, for heaven's sake. So, go to Auditor General. There's another office called Controller of Budget. All payments should be cleared by the Controller of Budget. But if you saw last time, I saw her very nervous because she was being pushed. It shouldn't happen. Controller of Budget should be a relaxed person. The Treasury should say, ma'am, we are paying, we have got 2.7 trillion. This is how we want to pay. Please approve. These are the facts. So I would really encourage that we respect institutions. But this politicization and the process, the brokers I mean, about, yeah. People who want to make money for themselves. We hear a lot of money.
But that's exactly what I was saying. People are there to make money out of this.
But
they are not being stopped.
Yeah,
there are people in State House, there are people in Treasury, there are people in devolution, all ministries who are waiting for any project to get the money.
But what I'm saying is the president himself, I don't have any facts. I don't think he's the one sanctioning saying, when this money comes, steal so much. If you are the president, you are up there. You are not likely to know what's going on.
I don't want to believe that those things are being done and the president doesn't know about them. I mean, like
he may not sanction, but he might be aware.
And if he knows about them and he is not party to them, then we should see consequences of people being kicked out.
When he said that corruption is in his office,
yeah,
what action did he take?
I wouldn't answer that one.
Okay. We would like to
but it is true. There must be consequences. If you are in charge of an institution, there must be consequences.
Yeah. I think, in my view, if a particular office does not perform or has become a letdown to the nation and to yourself as the president, you should not think twice about sending him home. So if Treasury is your problem, they show you rosy picture today and 2 months later it crumbles. I don't understand why the president would want to keep that team there. You should just tell them to pack up and go and put another team. The Kenyans you have 40 million Kenyans, for heaven's sake.
That's why
if things are not going right, get somebody else to try and do it right. But I think if you continue saying that let us not, everything of mine is fine, I think you know.
So he doesn't know.
It won't go anywhere.
Okay, well, no doubt the conversation will carry on. This doesn't seem to be anything that will go away overnight. And so we thank you for your time and your opinions here on Cheche today. We've had the former Central Bank Governor, Mika Cheserem, who's also the chairman of the committee, the Commission for Revenue Allocation. We've also had the Mandera Senator, Bill Okero, who's been here in his capacity as chair of the Senate Finance and Budget Committee. We'd also like to thank our panelists, Mutegi Njau and David Makali, as ever, for their robust opinions. You've been watching Cheche. Thank you for watching with us and engaging with us. I'm Udwaka Mimo. Enjoy the rest of your week.